So would you say that culture is the prevailing shaper of our emotional and intellectual capabilities rather than biology?
Yeah, I would say I think that many of the differences that we observe between men and women are culturally based and not biologically based. And so what I do in the book is I critique those, particularly evolutionary psychologists, who see that every difference between men and women that they observe must have a biological basis. And I think that the evidence for that is very weak.
What about the idea that men have more sex than women? I know from conversations I've had with male friends as opposed to female friends, they seem to boast about their antics. Is there any truth to the matter?
Well, I love this one because I regularly see in newspapers about, say, every 2 or 3 years, there's a survey and they ask men how many sexual partners you've had by the age of 40. And men might say, for example, 16. And then they'll ask women, and women will say 8. Now, they're roughly, if you think about it for a few seconds, you'll see that this is absolutely impossible, because there are roughly the same number of men and women in society, and roughly the same number of sexually active men and women in society. So each sexual act will have a tick in both columns. So on average, therefore, women will have as much sex, the average woman will have as much sex as the average man. Now, of course, you might get, at different points, the graph might get skewed. You'll have prostitutes on the one hand, and you will have people like Magic Johnson on the other hand, who have a lot of sex with a lot of people, and then you have kind of everybody else more or less somewhere in between. But the average woman has the same number of sexual partners as the average man. It could not be otherwise.
I guess it goes back to what you're saying about that macho need to show you're a man in society.
Yeah, I think that's men exaggerate and women understate. And that relates to the position of men and women in society. Yeah.
And something else that you mentioned in the book, which I found very interesting, is about who is the more talkative sex. Women are meant to talk more. Is that true? Is there any basis to that?
So this has been an idea that's been circulating for a long time. And there was a book by an American psychiatrist called Luann Brizendine, and she said that on the average day, men use 1/3 of the number of words as women, and this was broadcast all over the world. I still sometimes hear this at dinner parties. People saying this kind of thing. Well, it's actually it's a known fact that women speak more than men. There was a survey that said they speak 3 times as much. So an investigation into her sources, Luann Brizendine found that she got that from a self-help book. And the self-help book got that from another self-help book. And that other self-help book got that from another self-help book. And the other self-help book made it up. So there was no basis. In fact, she then got confronted by The Guardian about this. And she had to admit that she was wrong. So there've then been a lot of research done, but the most interesting study was one done in with a group of 1,000 people, some of them from Mexico and some of them from America, and they attached tiny microphones to them. But these microphones only switched on 1 point out of every 20. So it would switch on for 5 seconds, and then it would switch off for 100 seconds, and 5 seconds, 100 seconds. And it took them, I think it was about 4 years or 5 years to transcribe all the speech that was done by the men and women. It took them ages because there are 1,000 people. And what they found was that men and women both used 16,000 words a day on average. There was no statistical difference between the number of words that men and women used. There was a huge statistical difference among women and among men. You get some very taciturn women, and you get some very chatty women, and the same with men. So there's no truth to that at all.
Okay, what if we look at map reading, like in the title of your book?
Yeah.
I know your daughter quite well, and
Yeah.
I'm sure she won't mind me saying she's not the best at directions. I think you acknowledged that yourself in the book, and you mentioned that your mother isn't either.
Yeah.
Surely that would suggest that there are some characteristics that we're genetically predisposed to possess.
Oh yeah. Look, I have no doubt that my magnificent map reading and direction finding skills are a result of genetics. But those are that's individual genetics running through a family. So it's interesting that like my father didn't have any problem with his sense of direction. My sister doesn't have any problem with her sense of direction. My younger daughter doesn't have a problem with her sense of direction. So it's just hit a few of us where we have no sense of direction, none at all. But in terms of map reading and there've been a lot of studies on whether men or women have an advantage in, for example, geometric shapes and being able to turn them around and spot which direction things are moving in and so on. And what they found is that up to the age of 12, there's no difference at all. Then suddenly there is a difference, and men do better on those tests. So, the reason then is that reason biological? Does something suddenly change after the age of 12 that suddenly girls deteriorate in terms of direction finding or using geometric shapes? Or is there something else going on? So what they've done, there've been a number of studies in America and also in Italy where what they've done is they've told, they've had a control group, and then they've had another group where they've told them, the second group, they've said, look, this is a test on geometrical shapes, and there've been a number of studies found, and they found no difference whatsoever between men and women. In other words, they kind of lied. They then got them to do the test. The control group, where people had the women had the assumption they were worse, they did indeed do worse. In the group who were told there was no difference, they did exactly the same as men. So it relates to perceptions of mathematical ability of certain kinds that women develop through their school years, through a range of activities, through things like nowadays boys playing more computer games, a lot of things like that influence male ability in terms of direction, in terms of upside down map reading and things like that.
So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't think there's any evidence that the differences are innate, but yet they kind of reinforce it. So when somebody sees a woman being very cautious about going into a space or struggling with parallel parking, they might say, woman driver. But when a man does that, what do they say? He's just a bad driver, or he drives like a woman. So yeah.
Going back to evolutionary psychology, there's an interesting theory put forth by Desmond Morris.
Oh yeah?
In the 60s, in his book, he wrote that women have evolved to like to wear lipstick.
Yes.
I know that I like to wear lipstick. I'm trying to see everyone out there, maybe there's a few that do. Is that an evolutionary characteristic? What has that evolved from?
Yeah, Desmond Morris, The Naked Ape, one of the silliest books I've ever read. Yes, he finds evolutionary reasons for everything, but his evolutionary reason why women wear lipstick was that when we were in our earlier state of evolution, males were attracted to the bums of females in estrus, which would get inflamed. And that was then transferred to lips, and that's why men are attracted to women with lipstick. I was doing a course on teaching a course at Birkbeck relating to gender in the media. So I put Desmond Morris's view to the students, and I asked them what they thought of that. I wanted to see how they dealt with this. So one of them said, well, It's a very, very strange evolutionary development, seeing that lipstick wearing is only, as a generalized thing in society, the widespread lipstick wearing is less than 100 years old. But after the First World War, really, it kicked in. And yet, human beings like us, with our intelligence, have been around for 100,000 years at least. So it's a very strange evolutionary development. It's obviously just immensely silly. I mean, it's a cultural thing. It has nothing to do with biology.
You never know. We may have had cave women putting on berries on their.
Oh, you never know. Yeah.